Before I go into the nuts and bolts of the Illustrator interface, I just want to give you some basic concepts and skills so you can start using Illustrator right away. At this point, we understand the differences between bitmap and vector artwork, and we also understand the concept of paths inside of Illustrator. I'm working with a document called fillinstroke.ai, which is available inside the Chapter 1 folder. It's essentially the same document that we were working with in the last movie, so if you have that document open, really there's no need to open this document. But what we want to talk about here is how fills and strokes work inside of Illustrator. So what I'm going to do is come over here and highlight the selection tool. With the selection tool highlighted, if you click on one of these open paths that we were talking about in the last movie, when you select it, if you take a look at the control panel up here towards the top, we can see that we have a black stroke applied to this path. If we open this up, you'll notice that there's all sorts of different color options, but over here to the top left-hand corner, there's an option called None. If you go ahead and select that, once you select it, it looks like the path disappears. And for most purposes, it does. You don't see it on screen. If you were to print this, there's really nothing to print, but that doesn't mean that the path doesn't exist. It does. There's still the anchor points, and they're still connected together. If you hover around this empty space, eventually you'll find your path. If you're having trouble finding the path, you can always click and drag a marquee around the general area, and it will select that path. So you can have a path with no style. So obviously, if you create a path, you want to apply some type of style to it. So with it selected, again, in the control panel, you can come over here and choose whatever color you want. So if I go ahead and select this blue, you'll notice that the path is now stroked with that blue. Additionally, there are some other appearance options, and they're located up here towards the top in the control panel. Right now, we have the stroke weight, which is essentially the thickness. You can access this drop-down menu, and you can choose a different point size. If you go ahead and select something like 7, you'll notice it becomes a lot thicker. And there's some additional options here. For example, we have the variable width profile, and these are things that we'll get into a little bit later on. But you can go ahead and select one, and it changes the appearance of the stroke on the path. This looks a little bit more like a brush stroke. There's also this drop-down menu, which allows you to change the definition of the brush. So you have a lot of options in terms of the appearance of a particular path. Again, we can come over here and select this open path, and if we want, we can change the thickness, we can change the color. You have all these options available to you for modifying the appearance of the path. So it's important to understand that the path is inherently separate from the appearance. We can come over here and select one of our closed paths, and with one of these selected, again, you have all the same options for changing the appearance of the path. You can change the color, you can change the weight, all those options are available to you. But because it's a closed path, you have the additional option of changing the fill. The fill is the interior color of the shape. You'll notice next to the stroke inkwell, there's also a fill inkwell. If you click that, it'll open up that same swatches panel. You can go ahead and choose a color. Or if you want, you can choose one of these radial gradients or linear gradients. You can even choose one of these patterns. So there's a lot of options here in terms of changing the appearance of either an open or closed path. Again, we can come over here and select this oval. With the oval, you can change the appearance of the stroke, and you can also change the appearance of the fill. So there's a lot to this in terms of really controlling the appearance of your objects, but that's the basics, and that'll get you pretty far inside of Illustrator. The key concept here is to remember that a path is separate from its appearance. So you can have a path, but you won't see it in print or on screen until you apply some type of an appearance to it through either stroke properties or fill properties.